the need to discipline all his children, then Zambia is going to be left for the dog.
Ndana kudibbe economy avuta atiganzire kwa hivyo tarifa hike mara itebe yai.
Your voice,
and I repeat, my life is not if we think that until one day they come true. Mr. Given was beaten by his own cadence. What did they do? Nothing.
Your views,
and if politicians too. Definitely, they steal for the future so that they can live well.
For heaven's sake, we even put police.
Let the people talk. Every Tuesday and Friday at 9 a.m. on Phoenix FM.
It's now 9:10 in the morning. Once again, good morning. Welcome to Friday's edition of Let the People Talk. I'm your host, Jumoira Chileshen. On the show today, we are joined by special guests. And special because his responsibilities have a lot to do with special duties. We're joined by the UPND Presidential Assistant for Special Duties, Mr. Mubita Nawa. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Chimweka. Good morning, audience, listeners. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zambia and the world at large.
I know we met a few days ago, but for a lot of people, it's a long time since they heard from Mr. Mubita Nawa. How have you been generally?
I've been well. This is literally my first radio interview since the August 2021 elections. So I've been wonderful. God has been absolutely kind to us, and I'm so honored that you could invite me to join you today.
I think it would be right for us to start off with understanding your role. You've been given the position, or you've had, in fact, rather, the position of UPND Assistant for Special Duties, something that a role you've been serving even prior to the 2021 elections. But for some people, it seems like you're only getting this position now, and others are misunderstanding it as a position in government. Let's start off by understanding your role as a UPND Assistant, Presidential Assistant for Special Duties.
So sometime in 2020, I believe that we had run an amazing race. We were running an amazing race in terms of contribution towards national development. And in November of 2020, my colleague and I, Anthony, were appointed on the same day. And coincidentally, our first interview right after our appointment was right here on Radio Phoenix, barely 2 days or 3 days after our appointment. So my specific appointment was Special Assistant to the UPND President for Special Duties. That appointment was valid, is valid, and so I serve in that capacity as an assistant to the President of the United Party for National Development, who also happens to be the President of the Republic of Zambia. So I serve him, I report directly to him, and it's been a fascinating journey of contributing to the leadership of our President, as well as now simultaneously perhaps to the leadership of our country, because by serving the head of state in his capacity as the party president, I am invariably also serving the head of state as the head of state of our country. And I know that some people maybe are caught up in symmetry and dissecting words and where is your office, where do you work from. I think that what is important is service. Wherever you may be, however you may be called upon, if you have an opportunity to serve, that in itself is a great honor, and an honor and a responsibility that I take with absolute gratitude.
So does this mean you report directly to the head of state? Because again, it's also a party function. Do you report to the Secretary General? How does that work with the hierarchy?
So my role is assistant to the President. So I report directly to him. I've always reported directly to him. I do have oversight from the Secretariat. I have certain tasks that I may be given by the Secretary General or any other department within the party, because when you are serving, you can't say I only serve this one or I only serve that one. No. You serve wholeheartedly and holistically to the party. But in terms of specific duties as a special assistant, I have always reported to the President. I still report to the President to this day. I communicate with him, he communicates with me, he gives me certain tasks and responsibilities which I adjudicate, and sometimes I inform him of certain things which he may respond one way or delegate or seek further clarification and so on and so forth. So I report directly to the president of the party.
For the sake of greater context and understanding, I would give us some examples of these special duties, because when people hear special duties, it sounds very ambiguous. What exactly are these special duties that Mr. Mubita Nawa will be engaged on when, as head of state, he has so many assistants, so many people who work around him? So where do you come in with these special duties?
Being directly under the political party wing of his duties and responsibilities, obviously it has a significant bearing on party functions, on party responsibilities. So without saying too much or divulging too much, he may say, for example, could you look into this particular matter in this particular province and give me a report? Or he may even say, can you go and take care of this issue for me and let me know what is going on? Or he may seek clarification, what is going on with this on the ground? Many years ago, perhaps there used to be ministers without portfolio, if you would remember. Maybe it could be in that category where you are able to go anywhere that the president might want you to go and do anything that the president might want you to do within the party function. So one time, I'll give you an example. We were at a government function with the president somewhere, and the president had a party issue within that government function, and he called me and says, Mubita, can you take care of this? And so he was there as a head of state at a government function, but he had an intersection of a need, of a specific issue that needed to be addressed. And the president, for example, in that particular instance, called me and said, can you handle this for me and make sure you give me a report by tomorrow or by the next day, which I did, which I delivered to him, I sent to him. And so those are some of the duties. Some are very specific, some are very general. I'll give you another example. When we were in the opposition, there were many things that happened. If you remember, there were Mumbwa floods that happened. One person died in Mumbwa. And so organizing that trip to go to Mumbwa, making sure that families were taken care of, that one fell directly as a responsibility of me as a special duties assistant. So in terms of logistics, occurrences, coordination on the ground, movement from one home to another, excuse me, all those were responsibilities under special duties. And many other functions we don't really have to highlight because some of them are not individual works. In fact, most of them, if not all of them, they are collaborative work. I may have an assignment, but I may have to work with you, Chimweka, or work with somebody else in another area on behalf of the president, so that when the president shows up at that point, in his duty as party president, certain roles that fall directly under my charge are discharged.
The reason why I also thought it's important that we get clarity and context on this is because the UPND generally, under President Hakainde Hichilema's administration, has been criticized for what people call creating positions that people have not heard of before. We've heard of director, spokesperson, chief communications specialist, and so on. And people sometimes would think this position was just created to give some people jobs. So when you have these special duties and you have to be at an event where the president is, if it's a government function like you mentioned, so how does this work? Are you under the payroll of the party? Are you paid from the party to, if you need to be there and this per diem or anything like that? So this comes through from the resources of the party.
There is a huge distinction between party operations and government operations. And in terms of, to directly answer your question of has the UPND government created more positions or less positions, every government has a mandate to create functions and roles according to its manifesto and what it wants to achieve. We have had governments that had even extra ministries, desks at State House, ministries we don't need to mention. We know some of the ministries were not taken over in the UPND government, but even the UPND government, for example, came with its own ministries. Green economy, within Ministry of Commerce, certain functions were split. So every government has a right to create positions according to how it is going to function. It is not a new thing. It has been there before. There were ministries before, ministries that are no longer there today. There are ministries that are here today that may continue, may be merged. It's part of life. It's part of change. In terms of has the government mixed its roles between government and party, that can never happen. I think my position, for example, came in 2020, November, December 2020, way before we even formed in government. And it is still there today because it is a requirement within the office, the president's office of the political party, that he gets that kind of assistance. And if you look at the work that we did during campaign, the running around, the logistics, the background work, I think the management of the party, the president of the party, felt a need to assign myself and Anthony and many others specific roles so that the effectiveness and efficiency of the party must continue. So we mustn't criticize the UPND party for creating certain roles. In fact, we should thank the UPND party for reducing number of cabinet ministers, for reducing many other expenditures towards government so that we can have a much more efficient and stable operations of government.
You talked about your appointment coming through at the same time as Anthony Bwaria, who served as presidential spokesperson and eventually now serving as Deputy High Commissioner in Tanzania. And when this appointment came, people awaited your appointment as well into government. Of course, you're playing a role within the party, but people expected that Mr. Mubita Nawa, he was close with the president, he was working with the president, he did his part. Why isn't he appointed? And others even criticize the government for leaving you out. How have you been feeling in the last 2 years where people constantly are waiting for your appointment in government?
First of all, the appointing authority, there's only one appointing authority, and he has the prerogative and the right to appoint whom he feels at a particular time based on prudent counsel, based on his management style, and based on his vision for this nation. So we should always allow a leader to lead according to his style. And perhaps sometimes we arm twist the hands of leaders to choose us or choose you or choose our favorite people. But they know why they do what they do at a particular time. And for sure, I was very close to Anthony. I'm still close to Anthony. And even the day of his swearing in, I was there at State House. And even the day before his swearing in, I was there, and we continued and we still continue to work together and to collaborate. Was I disappointed, as people have suggested? I was not disappointed because perhaps we should remember why we fought for change of government. Some of us fought for change of government so that we could be free, so that we could experience the fresh air we are experiencing now, so that violence and all the bad things that we went through could come to an end. So to a greater extent, just crossing over into the new dawn administration, for many of us it was a victory. There are some who have suggested that perhaps I'm not as close to the president as I used to be. To the contrary, many times we comment on things we do not know, and it's not for me to come and prove to the world, no, I'm still, no. I think I am just as happy serving in the background as I was serving in the limelight. There is no distinction, there is no difference. There could be some human aspects, there was a time when it was too much. Every swearing in ceremony I was tagged in. Every little thing, it was Mubita. Sometimes it's too much. You are minding your business and people want to draw you into their fights, but you have to stay strong and stay focused. So for me, it's been wonderful. In fact, in some cases, I've been thankful that I've been able to watch my colleagues rise and experience growth, and in some cases experience changes. It has opened my eyes more to understand the leadership functionalities as well as the leadership expectations of our president and of our party. And in life, if you don't celebrate the victory of other people, perhaps you may not deserve that victory yourself. So I've had a wonderful time learning, observing, and enjoying my own space in this new dispensation, which is a wonderful dispensation, which is what we fought for, Chimweka.
Through interactions with the Republican president, who is the appointing authority, as you've rightly stated, have you gotten any understanding as to why you haven't been appointed? I know others have also brought up different suggestions. He's not competent enough, he's not qualified enough. These have come up as to why possibly Mubita Nawa has not been appointed yet. So have you gotten to understand why this has not been the case? Has he communicated to you perhaps directly saying, this is why I haven't put you in government?
I have many conversations with the president, and he's a wonderful leader, and he has a very good memory, by the way. One of the sharpest memories you've ever known. The president remembers people, remembers things. He shocks me. You'll be in Livingstone and he will greet 30 people by name. You go to Kalomo, same thing. You go to Copperbelt, same thing. You go to Chipata, 30, 40 people by name with a story. He is an amazing leader with great detail. I have never had a conversation with the president as to why things may be the way they are, or as to why, because there is no need. I'm that type of a person. I just don't have such conversations. I trust the president. I believe in the president, and I think Zambians must trust this man because he knows what he's doing. I've also heard a lot of reasons. I've heard, for example, some people say, oh, Mubita has not been appointed because he stole money for the party. How can I steal money for the party when I've never handled money for the party? For your own information, even some of the running arounds we did during the campaigns were self-funded. Absolutely 100% self-funded, maybe with the help of your elder sister, your younger brother, a cousin in the UK, a friend in America, but they were self-funded because we didn't want to burden even our president with our own budgets, who had a lot of budgets to do with a lot of things. So there will always be rumors, and when you are a leader, people will always have an opinion even about your innocence. They will declare you guilty even before you are tried. So the journey is long. We didn't join politics for positions, Chimweka. I did not do that. I joined politics to liberate my country from what I felt was a bad trajectory, and we needed to contribute together with others to the rescuing of Zambia from going downhill. I trust the president. I believe in the president, and I know that man knows what he's doing. Trust me on that one. And we have had many conversations with the president, and we'll continue to have many conversations with the president. But I will never ask him such a question, because that is disrespect to an appointing authority. And that is also showing desperation, which I'm not. I'm not desperate for positions, Chimweka. No. I'm happy with how our country is going. And this is what I would like every other young person in this nation to know. That the president will never appoint everybody at the same time. Mango taipira pamo. There are people, I'll give you an example, Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa. He has just recently made full cabinet minister. Recently, 2-3 weeks ago. But before, he too had other people suggesting, putting innuendos around him. There is a race that each one must run. And sometimes in life, you should be as happy to sit in the front seat of a bus as you should be to sit at the back seat of the bus. And sometimes you should be outside the bus to watch the bus, to clean the bus. I am so happy with where I am. I am so honored to serve, even just to have this position. It's a great honor. At least in the history books, my children will say, our father did this, and that. And that is enough for me.
You were saying that you're happy with how things are in the country and how President Hakainde Hichilema is leading the country. Others would disagree with you and wonder actually why you're happy when there's quite the challenges being faced by citizens. And we'll start off with the cost of living, which is the key issue for a lot of people. How much people are buying a bag of meal even after the ZNS intervention. Still, the price of fuel, the monthly reviews, and so on, which are affecting the cost of living. I know that yesterday there was a forum, a public forum that took place, conducted by Chapter 1 Foundation with the Minister of Finance and National Planning, also acknowledging some of these challenges that people are facing. So when you say you're happy with how President Hakainde Hichilema is running this country, Just explain further, especially with the background of the cost of living being high at the moment.
The UPND manifesto basically stood on many legs, but there were 4 fundamental legs that the UPND manifesto encompassed. The first aspect was economic transformation of our nation, Zambia, to come out from default of our debt payment, to come out from abuse of resources meant for the nation, which was ending up in people's pockets, to come up from nearly a negative economic growth per annum to achieve above 2.93% per annum growth, to stabilize micro and macro economic aspects, including simple things such as paying civil servants on time, paying retirees, to clear the backlog of paying retirees, to allow people to access their benefits, to give students their allowances, their 600 kwacha per month student meal allowance, to recruit teachers. The UPND, in the 2 years that it has been in power, has recruited more people than certain political parties recruited in their entire stay in power. So in that regard, the economic transformation, the real economic transformation, not fake economic progress that we saw sometimes, where individuals would have millions and millions of kwacha in their house, but the community did not have money. Economic transformation in terms of increasing constituency development fund by 29 million kwacha per constituency. The president found CDF at 1.6 million, and even with that 1.6 million, CDF used to go back into the treasury, used to be controlled from a central place, but now CDF has gone to 30.6 million. That is economic transformation. Young children are going to school, more students are on bursary than ever before, new recruits. The UPND manifesto also looked at infrastructure development, to develop not only new infrastructure, but even those infrastructures that were abandoned by our colleagues. That is part of the responsibility of a head of state and of government. And number 2, human and social transformation, whether we are looking at social cash transfer, an increase of over 100,000 beneficiaries now for the first time ever on social cash transfer, increase in number and amounts. And lastly, if you look at environmental structure, environmental sustenance, those are the 4 pillars that the UPND stood for. So in the general and overall sense, I am absolutely happy that the government is delivering on its promises to the people. Now, are there some pending issues, some outstanding issues that require more attention now? Yes. What are those issues? 2 main critical issues: the cost of mealie meal, for example, or cost of living in general, and number 2, the cost of fuel. Those the president has acknowledged, the vice president has acknowledged, all ministers have acknowledged, and the reasons have been stated as to why. Some of the reasons why we are facing higher cost of living, for example, have to do with the general world economic environment. In 2008, there was a terrible economic meltdown that started in New York in the US. We all suffered as a continent. And right now, there are terrible economic, geopolitical activities, whether in the Middle East, whether it is in Europe in particular, Russia-Ukraine war, that have terribly affected our country, including OPEC decisions to cut down on production of oil, because OPEC always controls the price of oil. If OPEC realizes that there's too much crude oil on the market, they reduce. It's part of how the oil market has been going. So given those scenarios, Zambia has been affected in her own trajectory and projections, including some of the promises that were given in good gesture and in good faith. But there have been challenges economically, challenges logistically. Supply of fertilizer, for example, was totally hampered by the war in Ukraine. We all saw what was happening. The good news is they are being addressed. The intervention of ZNS into the mealie meal price is a wonderful thing. Some are criticizing that to say, why start with only this shop? There is always a beginning. Why do you only have so many number of milling plants? There is always a beginning. And that beginning will grow, and we are going to see significant improvement. And we are already seeing a trickle-down effect. I'll give you an example. Some of the millers have complained now that ZNS coming on the market is going to lower the minimum price further. Now, that should tell you something. Was some of these price hikes realistic, or maybe some of them were manipulated by a group of controllers, gatekeepers? These are things that I believe the government is addressing, will continue to address, and within our 5-year first mandate, if this was a soccer game, right now the UPND is somewhere in the 25th, 28th minute. We haven't even done halfway of our mandate. We will soon be on half time, quote unquote, using the analogy of soccer, and the coach will talk to his players. Our president will talk to his players as he continues to do. And when we come back, remember we will say ball in 90 minutes. A lot of things are going to be controlled, are being controlled. There are many, many ministries at work right now, from Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Commerce. There are many, many interventions at many levels. And that in itself gives me absolute and utter confidence that we are headed in the right direction.
You've brought up external factors that are contributing to Zambia's economy now. But even when this happens, people will again make reference to what happened in the past, and President Hakainde Hichilema's statements that he made. One of them was on the issue of climate change, and at the time the economy was not performing well, and climatic factors were brought in by then President Edgar Lungu, and these were criticized by even President Hakainde Hichilema. He spoke about this and blamed it on the government that they didn't put certain things in place to oversee some of these issues. Today, if we make all these external, bring up the external factors here of geopolitics and so on, others would say the same also about the president, that there hasn't been much done by the current government to oversee some of these factors. Recently, the chief government spokesperson, Cornelius Mwetu, was on record saying different interventions and policies have been put in place for the 2023-2024 farming season, and all now that people should pray for is great rainfall. But the Zambia Meteorological Department, for example, are again predicting that rainfall will not be as desired for this particular season. So when we talk about the external factors and the role of the government, do you think much has been done, especially by President Hakainde Hichilema, to oversee some of these challenges?
Absolutely. If Honorable Cornelius Mwetu says all input distribution, fertilizer distribution, marketing policies have been tweaked to ensure that we have a successful season, and we are only waiting and depending on God's grace to give us abundant rain, and the meteorological department then says downcasts the amount of rainfall that we will receive, that is not a President Hakainde Hichilema problem or causality. That is our problem. That is part of the global effects of weather patterns, of climate change. And the government, therefore, will look back and say, okay, what can we do to support farmers with irrigation? Can we do loans? Can we do this? Are these catered for in what program under Ministry of Agriculture? What World Food Program or World Bank or IMF or international partners can we incorporate to ensure that irrigation, our many, many water supplies, are incorporated in supplementing God's rainfall towards us? And as we criticize human beings, we should understand there are certain factors that those human beings have no control of. Like you have said, if the government has prepared but we don't have good rain, we once had El Nino in Zambia, and El Nino was real not only to Zambia but to Africa and to the world. And so we should not be a people who are hungry and excited to criticize people because we just love criticism. I think even within the Zambia political dispensation, perhaps time has come to have informed, mature dialogue even among us political players. I think sometimes our colleagues in the opposition love sound bites, and I personally think they are a little bit in shock being in opposition when they didn't think they would be in opposition. We were in opposition for 22, 23 years, and we managed, and we survived, and we thrived, even even under harsh and difficult circumstances. Our friends, even under better governance, better freedoms, better human rights respect, they are struggling. So sometimes they come up with sound bites. They come up with criticism on a personal level rather than on an objective level. And I think we can do better as a nation.
But you see, Mr. Nawa, that again, what comes up is that this is what is to happen before. This is what even President Nawa used to do. I give you an example of the climatic factors that were brought up in the past. But still the government was blamed for what was going on, for not overseeing some of these challenges, which were explained as climatic factors. Today, I've used another example of rainfall as one aspect here. And people could easily argue the same way President Nawa was arguing around the climatic change.
The climatic environment of Zambia today, in some instances, is better, in other instances, it's worse. Our friends, in certain instances, they had more rainfall than we probably have had. By this time in the past, it would have rained, we would have already started preparing our fields. I was in Southern Province yesterday, and the fields are not yet prepared because it has only rained once in some cases. In other cases, it has not even rained. So when we look at the weather patterns now, it's getting, in some cases, I'm not a scientist, and I don't want to talk about issues that I'm not a specialist in, but I'm a farmer as well, and I have got farms I have a farm in Southern Province, and we are watching some of the climatic aspects and happenings in Southern Province and in other provinces, and I can say from a layman's point of view, in some cases it's getting worse. Our colleagues, even with Eurobonds, even with huge donor funding, even with good weather, in many cases they disadvantaged on purpose the farming process in certain regions, including, for example, distributing fertilizer in their favorite provinces, and they blamed it on weather, when in actual fact some of the decisions of their past were purely based on hatred, malice, and undermining certain tribes and benefiting certain tribes. In this regard, I believe we should wait for this season to finish. The president has done what he needs to do. The Minister of Agriculture...
But you make a statement like that, it's something that has to be backed up by evidence. We talk about people being sidelined based off tribe and out of hatred, because if they were here to defend themselves, they'll definitely argue that out.
So we are coming from a history where certain provinces would receive 5 or 6 fertilizer bags up, 5 or 6 fertilizer down, base, top and basal dressing. But certain provinces, we know, we shouldn't go back too much in the past, we would receive 2 bags. So what was the significance of giving one province 5 bags of fertilizer and another province 2 bags of fertilizer? This was a pattern, Chimweka. And as we heal and as we rebrand this nation, in the words of certain people that they are rebranding, we should not run away from the hatred and the divisions that were caused in the lives of people. There are certain provinces to this day that never received a single hospital because they were not on the list, they were not considered worthy of development. But if you go in certain provinces where these people felt and chose to develop, you would be ashamed. And I don't want to be very specific because my president, I believe, has forgiven a lot of these people, and my president has championed unity, and we should move on, but we should not allow people to ignore the hate, economic hate, harm, and retrogressive policies that they did towards others. We should not.
Speaking of economic hurt, getting back to this, as his assistant, do you have these conversations with him? Because they're now, when we talk about promises, people can make reference to what was said before that has not been implemented, and people still do not see implementing regardless. One of them is the 50 kwacha for 25 kg bag of milk. That's a very common one that is brought up, and based off economic projections, people do not see this happening. We know that the cost of living is high, not only in Zambia. Even developing countries are experiencing this and also putting in measures. So based off this, people wonder what sort of miracle would happen to get to that point. But people make reference to it and say, we were told this even for fuel. There were explanations that were made on how these prices can be reduced and so on. Do you think that even when these promises were being made, they were made in a position where maybe some things are not understood on how government works and how certain things are when you're in power, that do not make some of these promises realistic? Now that President Hakainde Hichilema is in power, do you think that these realizations have been made?
Some of the promises we have to understand. First of all the promises were made in good gesture and in absolute good faith and in trust in the goodwill of the people of Zambia and in trust that the economic and the micro environments would remain consistent. So some of the promises were not considerate, for example, that there would be a war in another part of the world, or there would be an upset or an upswing or an upsurge in the supply and market of oil and so on and so forth. But I'll give you an example. I'll come back to the millennium. I'll give you an example of the dollar promise, the 14 hours, the famous 14 hours Mule Kutika promise. I was there that day in Ndola when that press conference was being had. The context of that promise was to say the confidence that donors that had left the country as a result of inability of Zambia to pay its loans, its $200 million per month at that time, loan obligations, the confidence that had been lost as a result of default on many loans, including the Euro bonds, the default on those loans, the confidence that had been lost would be regained soon after being voted in, including the debt restructuring. If you remember very well, our colleagues who caused the enormous debt burden, the enormous economic mess that we found ourselves in, our colleagues, the causers, if there's such an English word, actually said Mr. Hakainde Hichilema cannot restructure the debt of Zambia. I'll give you an example. They said he cannot restructure the debt of Zambia. They were so confident in their mess that they didn't believe he could negotiate a restructuring of the debt. So the context of that promise was that the confidence of our donors, the economic confidence of the local investors, foreign investors, local creditors, local debtors, foreign creditors, foreign debtors would rise by 14 hours, which would invariably affect the dollar rate. And we have seen a much stable dollar rate, less volatile, slightly higher perhaps than we would have wanted it to be, but remember it has been affected by the same micro and macro economic factors. So there are certain promises that maybe are sound bites, but the context in which they were given was in good gesture and in good faith, and it was a contextual conversation rather than a sound bite.
But you talked about the dollar, and that is what people heard. That is what people heard, and at the moment, it's far from that particular promise. If we talk about the dollar at the moment, it's far from that particular promise. So then now, how come the explanation and the contextualization is seemingly different from what people actually heard on that particular day? Because he spoke of the dollar itself.
Let us put it in a local language or layman's term. You are about to marry a woman and you tell her, by this time I'll make sure I've bought you a car. You are promising a woman, but at that time, you as the future husband, you are hoping that this woman is at a certain level with certain aspects within her house. For example, she has enough food storage, or she even knows how to drive, or she even has one or two other fundamentals met. By the time you are marrying this woman, and meanwhile maybe the father of this woman has told you, our daughter can drive. The father of this child has told you, our daughter can do this. When you marry her, you suddenly discover what the father told you is nowhere near the reality of that woman. I'm talking about specifically in the context of, for example, the Bank of Zambia debt obligations of Zambia to the world. Do you know that even the debt that we thought Zambia had was undervalued? The debt obligation, there are certain debts that were hidden from the public. There are certain loans that were contracted on behalf of this nation by one signature, by two people sitting under a shade, by three people getting on a private plane to Turkey to do something on behalf of someone, on behalf of the nation. And so by the time the UPND government came into power, the reserves at the Bank of Zambia were not, the foreign reserves at the Bank of Zambia were not where we thought they were supposed to be. In other words, there was more damage to this nation economically than what we even thought. And you can blame us for that, because when you are in the opposition, you have no access to all the information of government. You have to depend on the truthfulness of that government to declare its obligations, liability, and indebtedness. So to a larger extent, this husband called Bali, who has married this country called Zambia, found this beautiful wife called Zambia in a much more deplorable economic state that he had to start from scratch. Some of the promises he gave this woman, he thought he would start at level 5 or level 4. He found he had to start in negative something, including, for example, debt restructuring, which was important to unlock further IMF intervention in this nation. But IMF could not go ahead without, for example, China coming to the table. And even the same people who created the mess predicted that the president was never going to be able to convince China to come to the table. But he did. And we should thank God that we have a new husband who has managed to solve the economic debt burden of this country, including the bad name. We were a laughing stock around the world. No one could trust Zambia, not even to borrow Tungwe. I might be exaggerating, but I'm speaking metaphorically. But now Zambia is a darling of the world, because Zambia has stood up, honored up, and admitted and accepted the mistakes of our colleagues that they made.
You say Zambia is a darling to the world. Others have argued that further, saying Zambia right now is a darling of the West. And it's still coming back to President Hakainde and how others regard him as a Western puppet. And he's in good books with them, extremely good books with them, to a point of raising questions to various stakeholders. So when you talk about Zambia being a darling to the world, others would see that as only one side of the world.
Nelson Mandela did an interview in the USA, I believe it was 1995, with a very famous journalist. And one of the things the late Nelson Mandela was asked was, why are you friends with Fidel Castro? Why are you friends with Yasser Arafat? Why are you friends with Gaddafi? And Nelson Mandela gave one of the most classic responses to such a question. And he said, your enemies are not my enemies. And there are people who want to frame the president in terms of who he relates to and how he relates to. They have predicted doom. Remember, these are people who even said any other Tonga man would rule Zambia except this Tonga. So in many instances, these people are living with denial, and they are living in heartbreak, because it is very painful for them to see someone that they never thought would win the ballot to be so loved, first of all by Zambians, and to be loved by the world. So in that regard, these people even predicted that the president was in bad books with, for example, China. And they even said the president would never go to China. The president just came back from a very successful 7-day tour of China. And even when he was in China, they began to talk about, why has he started from other provinces instead of starting from the capital? It means the president of China does not welcome him. How can the president go on a state visit in a foreign country without the president of that nation inviting him? And lo and behold, the very last or second to last day, the president met with the president of China. Our president met with the president of China. Wonderful reception, wonderful time. He is relating to every leader of the world. There are over 150 countries in the world. And our president must relate to each one of them without you, Chimweka, dictating who he should love more or who he should hate more. The enemies of some people are not the enemies of our president. And he will make decisions, him and his cabinet, based on the interests of our nation, not on the interests of any other nation or any political party.
Before we open up the phone lines, Bali as the slogan was prior to the 2021 elections, was "He'll fix it." Bali will fix it was what Zambians were told. And today, when people are facing different challenges, definitely the past will come up. Oh, the PF did this, PF left it like this. Here you're also mentioning of hidden contracts that were signed that somehow have not been availed to the public. It's also being concealed the same way you're making the accusation that they were done in hidden times and so on. It's still being concealed even now, which will make people ask questions on whether that really happened. But the question is, regardless of whatever was found, people were told that Bali will fix it. But will he really is a big question that people will ask. Without making constant references to the past, will Bali be able to fix it?
The answer is Bali is already fixing it. He is fixing many things. He has a laundry list. He has fixed cadarism, for example. There are no cadres. No one is being beaten. No one is...
But that can be argued further, Mr. Nawa. When you say there's no cadarism, people can tell you that is far from the truth.
Well, subjectivity is always there. Exclusivity is always there. There could be one or two instances. That doesn't mean they are the norm. We are coming from a place where, for example, people were being tortured at City Market in Kamugodi at the behest and the blessing of the authorities. They knew what was going on, but they turned a blind eye. We are coming from a place where, Chimoika, you would wake up there in Ngwerere, in Ichunga, in Ballaston, you have title deeds to your land, and the next day you find people are demarcating your land. So that has been fixed, for example. CDF, young people are going to school. Free education. Families are able to save that money that they were paying for school fees. They are now they're investing that money in other projects, building a house, meal allowance, teacher recruitment, salaries of government are being paid on time. That is a wonderful thing. Pensioners, retirees, I think we heard in the last parliament speech by the president that the time that it takes of a retiree to receive their money, one of the targets now of the government is to make sure that if you retire today, you should be able to receive your money almost immediately. This is a turnaround from where we are coming from. We saw those women there at the Ministry of Justice being soaked, our elderly mothers and fathers, our grandfathers being soaked for years and years, being bypassed by ministers because they were just crying for their pensions. Bali is fixing it. If you look at the 30,000 teachers, I was in Mwandi 3 months ago at the funeral of the former chief, the late chief, and I met a teacher there who said, Mr. Nawa, I have been posted here in Mwandi without connection. I didn't know anyone, but I'm now a recruitee of this new government. Please shake the president's hand and tell him that I said thank you. So if you look at the recruitment numbers, you look at the confidence in our economy, the new allowances of young people, the stabilization of prices of maize on the market for farmers. Now farmers are making a profit, or at least breaking even. Even farmers who are not growing maize have promised the president and the nation that this coming season they are planting maize, meaning we'll have more maize next year. He is fixing it. He is not completely done with the list. He is still working on it. Remember, the mandate is 5 years. We are at 2.2. And very soon, more benefits are coming our way. Whatever is outstanding, that is part of leadership. He is going to work on it. He has good people around him who advise him, who he also advises and guides. I don't think you have ever seen the president make a phone call to people and hear him demand from these people. The president is very demanding. He will call you and say, why haven't you delivered this? Why is this? He follows up. He is very detailed, very, very detailed. He has quite a brain. And he is aware even now of our current challenges. He has not ignored. He has admitted himself. In 2 weeks ago when he was swearing in the permanent secretary of Ministry of Energy, he admitted certain things and even encouraged the Honorable Member to say, you take care of this and get back to me with new ways in which we are going to stabilize the monthly fuel price reviews. That is a president who cares. He is not burying his head in the sand like an ostrich. He has admitted and he is recognized where there are areas that still need improvement. That is what being in government is. It is service to the people.
And we'll talk about that further, issues of pronouncements, statement being made and the action being taken. Because when you talk about civil servants getting paid on time and so on. We could even talk about the councils, for example, but we'll get into that further on the other side of Let the People Talk. Our guest is the UPND Presidential Assistant for Special Duties, Mr. Mubita Nawa. We'll break up for the community news and open up the phone lines on the other side of the show. But also remember, we are live on our Facebook page.
Like us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Phoenix FM Zambia. Phoenix FM Zambia. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. Phoenix FM Zambia.
It's time.
Phoenix FM. Now on DSTV Channel 915. Channel 915.
It's time to step up with Stanbic Bank. Whatever your business, take it to the next level. Our team of experts are here to help your business grow. With our business and commercial banking services, we will help you improve your cash flow. Simplify your banking with our digital platforms so you can do more with your time. Unlocking your finances to enable you to grow your business. So why wait? Growing your business, that's our business. Call us on 888 or visit our website or your nearest branch. Let's talk business. Let's talk growth. Stanbic Bank. It can be.
This time check is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
The time of Phoenix FM is 10 hours. Time for the community news.
The community news.
Choma street vendors remain on the streets due to lack of market space. Ndola district takes proactive measures to prevent cholera. To present the community news, I'm Lusubelo Gondwe. Choma Mayor Javan Simoloka has attributed the failure to remove street vendors to the absence of a proper market in Choma district. According to Mr. Simoloka, the district is currently engaged in negotiations with Zambia Railways to have the land where the market is currently located officially designated as a market. He went on to mention that the council lacks the authority to relocate traders to the existing market due to sanitation issues. Mr. Simoloka revealed that street vendors will continue to operate on the streets until a suitable market is identified for their relocation. Ndola District Health Director Francis Leali has announced proactive measures to prevent waterborne diseases as the rainy season approaches. In an interview with Phoenix News, Mr. Leali disclosed that Ndola has not reported any cholera cases thus far. The district has, however, designated a cholera center in Masala to manage potential outbreaks. He further elaborated that the District Health Office, in collaboration with its partners, will convene a meeting on epidemic preparedness tomorrow to strategize the implementation of preventive measures. Mr. Leali underscored the importance of ensuring that Ndola residents have access to clean water and maintain clean surroundings. To end the community news, another look at the headlines. Choma street vendors remain on the streets due to lack of market space, and Ndola district takes proactive measures to prevent cholera. Keep listening to Let the People Talk.
The community news.
Join our carnival at Builders Lusaka and McKinney for great giveaways, deals, and fun for the whole family. Save 95 kwacha when you buy the Campmaster Classic Chair 200 for 315 kwacha. Or get the hard body cooler box for 295 kwacha, save 90 kwacha. Offers valid 19 to 22 October 2023. Visit us in-store for more deals. Get to Builders. Get it done.
Welcome to MTN's new star 117 hash easier menu.
What's on the menu? Get more minutes for your quarter. Dial *117 hash, select voice, choose a bundle of your choice, and get more minutes for your quarter. For minutes to call all networks at the same rate, 1Z keeps you connected. For your MTN to MTN calls, Sparker energizes you to talk more with your friends and family. Unlike Benanguka, got 2 quarter to calculate 12 minutes. Switch to MTN and outdo it all. MTN.
Are you ready to soar to new heights of excitement with Bet Lion's biggest ever Aviator Rain Free Bets giveaway? Picture this, every week, like clockwork, we're showering you with a whopping 125,000 kwacha in free bets. That's right, 125,000 kwacha. It's winning free bets at Bet Lion, and you are invited to claim your share. Whether you're a newbie or an aviator connoisseur, our free bets have got you covered. So, how can you get on the action? It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Just visit Bet Lion today, place your aviator bets, and you're automatically entered to win a piece of the 125,000 kwacha pot. That's 125,000 kwacha app for grabs every week, and it could be yours. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to win big at Bet Lion. Visit us today at www.betlion.zm to get started. Aviator Rain Free Bets giveaway. It's your ticket to winning, only at Bet Lion. Betting is only for persons above the age of 18.
Her, helping every woman rise. A custom-tailored banking solution for women by FNB Zambia. Enjoy better credit rates, bespoke insurance offers, special discounts with alliance partners, networking, and business linkages. Visit an FNB branch near you or contact your relationship manager to find out more. Switch to FNB, Bank of the Changeables. FNB, how can we help you?
Good news to all farmers and agribusiness customers. The automotive power truck tractor raffle is here. Buy any Alliance brand agricultural tires worth 10,000 kwacha and stand a chance to win a 75 horsepower brand new power truck tractor. The entries are ongoing and valid up to the end of October. Terms and conditions apply. For more details, visit our website at www.aelzm.com. Automotive equipment, cause you deserve quality.
Are you ready to taste pure refreshment like never before? Introducing Amur Mineral Water. Experience the crisp taste of pure hydration, the bottled water that will quench your thirst and rejuvenate your senses. Each sip more satisfying than the last. Pure water, pure hydration. Amur Mineral Water. Love in every drop.
Like us on Facebook. Phoenix FM Zambia. Phoenix FM Zambia.
Welcome back to Let the People Talk. Our guest this morning, in case you just joined us, is the Upnd Presidential Assistant for Special DTs, Mr. Mubita Nawa. You can come through and be a part of the show. You can drop a message via the Phoenix FM WhatsApp line, 0978-895-895. You can also call in via 0211-226841 or 0978-895-895. Alternatively, you can also use our Facebook page live stream on Phoenix FM Zambia to drop a comment. Let's get to our first phone call. You can have your headphones on. Okay, try again, 0211-226841 or 0978-895-895. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mweka. Honorable Mubita, good morning. Dr. Proud from Ghana.
Good morning, Dr. Proud.
First of all, Mubita, when you are doing your job, you are not doing on behalf of President Haga in the HRM. You are doing that job on Zambian people. So continue doing, including all the government department who are listening. Whatever department, let us make a result. The more you are talking. For example, there were some players, Chimweka. I heard in certain media, a former PFO defense secretary. He was telling the players not to produce middlemen, to punish Zambian because the government has partnered with the National Service. After from a player, you went to bring evil mind. That is a shame. So, others back up to why President Simona and Deko Kumapempero. But President wanted to elect people to take development. Go to church is another choice. There is already there. So what we want is not a hatred to encourage millers to boycott, produce the mill. That is the anarchy. And you investigate that clip for Mr. Nawa to arrest that person. Now, to come to the another topic, Brother Chumweka.
Very briefly, Dr. Pound, we need to accommodate others.
The more we are going in to develop our age ranges of society, we want to know who is the leader for PF. They don't have muscle to fight in the parliament. We need them to fight in the ground.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Proud, for your contribution. Remember to keep your contributions within a minute so that we can accommodate other callers. Let's take another call before we get a response from you, Mr. Nawa. Good morning. Hello? Hello, good morning. Let's try the other line. 0211-226-841 or 0978-895-895. Good morning.
Good morning, Felix.
You're through to Let the People Talk. Who are we speaking with?
Yes, good morning, Nawa.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, Banda from SOS. I'm a retired officer who went on voluntary separation. What is your comment on retirees who have not been paid under the Ministry of Justice? Up to now, for the past 24 years, previous regimes promised to clear us, but up to now, what is your current comment of, especially on the workers, former government workers called voluntary separatists? Thank you. Good day.
All right, thank you. Let's start with Dr. Prouds, who's, I guess, talking about you speaking also on behalf of the Zambian people, but also brought up another issue that has been of public conversation because of Wednesday, the day of national prayer, fasting, repentance and reconciliation, where President Hakainde Hichilema, since he assumed office, has never officiated on this particular day, and others linking it to what is to happen in the past. Does he still share the same sentiments about this day despite being in office? Maybe you can also talk about that.
The National Day of Prayer is an important holiday and day in our country, designated, gazetted, and there's been a government representative, Honorable Her Honor, the Vice President, has done a wonderful job, and the President has a right to delegate and assign anyone to act in his stead and on his behalf based on how he adjudicates. He has a right, and I don't think we should debate or discuss a presidential calendar. If the President sends someone or to read a speech on his behalf, it is as good as his presence. Might we also add that the same day, National Day of Prayer, without politicizing it, we should also recognize that even the first year of its occurrence, the people that created that holiday did not attend. Okay, they did not attend. So we did not fault them. It is a day for national prayer and reconciliation and unity for our country. It's not a day where we start doing calendars, who is absent and who is present. It is so that all of us in our homes, in our farms, in our churches, can reflect on our unity as a country, which is one of the basics of our fundamental constitutional rights as a country, to remain united and to reconcile. Some reconciliations will happen today, others will happen tomorrow, some in future, but it is not a day to do roll call, and the President will assign who he assigns. In terms of arresting the person who is pushing a boycott of, I think the coming into the market of ZNS has sent some shockwaves in some people, and it's good for competition. And I pray that many more government institutions can come back into the marketplace to participate, so that the government economically contributes not to moderate or to control, to go back to exchange rules that were there, but to bring sanity in some cases, so that people are not exploited. It is normal even in Angola, it is normal in many other countries, even in the United States. There are certain things that are done by government on behalf of the people. It is the mandate of the government to look after its people. So those who are not happy about that, they need to get used to the new captain on the block. In terms of Mr. Banda from SOS, retirees under Ministry of Justice. Mr. Banda, I have taken note. I wish you could even I wish I had your contact. I would follow up on this. These are the things that our president is taking care of. If you remember, there was even a call for those who were retired in national interest or fired wrongly or dismissed wrongly. They were invited to come back. I believe a matter like this, 24 years, must already be receiving attention. I can talk to Honorable Haimbe on your behalf to follow up. I can personally go to Justice and follow up on this. I wish there was a way I could get your contact so that I can call you by Monday to tell you how far this matter has gone, so that I can update you. If I need to talk to the president and find out, I will, but I don't need to go to the president first. I need to go to Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Finance, and find out what are the impediments. Sometimes when there are delays in matters such as this, even with the good intentions of the UPND, you may find that the case is in court. I'm not saying in this particular case, but I've seen such instances where even the government is about to pay, but maybe an injunction is filed. But being a government that respects the rule of law, we will wait and allow the court to adjudicate and rule again on a matter. You find maybe assets are supposed to be liquidated so that you are paid. I know a particular case where a company became insolvent in Ndola, and in trying to recover those assets, it became a very big, complicated legal case. But Mr. Banda, do try and get in touch with me so that I can personally follow up with the Ministry of Justice and any other parties involved and give you feedback.
0211-226-841 or 0978-895-895. Good morning. Good morning. Is this Elvis?
It is.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Nawa.
Good morning, Bwana Elvis. Thank you.
It's good to hear from you after a long time. You have been in hibernation. I don't know where you were. You have resurfaced. It's good. Yeah. Let me address the issue of they're saying where we are coming from. You see, when you ask people about where you are coming from, they tell you that where you are coming from, they used to buy a bag of milk at 117, 120, and where we are today, we are buying milk at 300, 230. Yesterday I bought a bag of milk at 200. A 20 kg bag, not 25, 20 kg. They'll tell you where we are coming from. We are buying fuel at 17 kwacha, but today they are at 30 kwacha. They'll tell you where we are coming from, Mr. Nawa. Fertilizer will be 650, but today they have 1 thing. So when we talk about where we are coming from, it will be far much better than where we are today. Because most of the things we are talking about have been increased, including the cost of transport. Where we are coming from, I was paying from here to Mansa. It was 290, now it is 430. So where we are coming from.
Elvis, you have to conclude with your contribution.
I will conclude together. The second thing is the issue of living.
Hello? I lost the call just as well. But let's take in another call before we get a response from you, Mr. Nawa. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Who are we talking to?
Mr. Ntele. Mr. Nawa, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ntele. Thank you.
Yeah, long time. I don't know why I've come in politics, Mr. Nawa, because previously we know that you are a good motivator who can encourage each and everybody. Now my question to you, Mr. Nawa. I do recall Mr. President on 1st May announced that these ministers are driving very expensive vehicles. Up now, we don't see these people to bring to the carpet, and who allowed these guys to buy these expensive vehicles. Are we fighting corruption? Then coming like the Prophet was talking about it. You promised that we shall go to heaven, but now it seems we are heading to hell. Things are expensive. We are saying no. We are talking about Ukraine and so on and so on. I'm telling you 1 hour. Things, I know that you are doing something, but now work on this, and the system of blaming the PF, that's under bridge, People, they voted for you that you have to perform, but now we are busy, these people, they did something. Look what this PF they did. They did their part. Can you do your part? Especially concerning about the cost of living. And even in school, are saying that there is free education. I was asking my daughter, is the teacher marking you? Say no, 300. The first one maybe you just mark about 2. Then you say no. They will just live like that. Is that free education? How can you know that the child is performing good? Because they're supposed to have more classes and then more teachers. And there's a rumor that they recruited the state teachers. Can you investigate over these things?
Thank you so much, Mr. Ntele, for coming through. Let's start with Elvis. He wasn't able to conclude his contribution, but one thing that he brought up was still the cost of living, and is talking about what usually said by members of the Upnd and government who love to make reference to the past. And his point being, if we talk about where people coming from the place where the commodities that they're buying now, they'll buy them at lower price. I won't exactly say cheaper, because when we talk about cheap, it's quite relative, but they're buying it at a lower price than they are now. Allow me to also take in this message here to tie it in with what Elvis was saying. There's a message from Chisha, Josh. It says, good morning, Chumaika and Mr. Nawa. Can you tell us what UPND meant by Bali will fix it? If he thought the nation was not damaged, I thought he knew that the country was in a real mess when he was making those promises. I don't understand the change of goalposts. Secondly, I prefer to pay school fees of 300 kwacha per year as it used to be than buy a meal at 300 kwacha every month. So I love the UPND and its leadership, because I thought you were going to stand by your promises, but you've hit us with great disappointment. So it brings up that conversation still of people talk about, cadres have been removed, even though many will still argue that. We talk about the free education policy, but the cost of living remains high, and that seems to be the most fundamental thing for people. What's your response to that?
Thank you, Mr. Elvis. Talking about how under PF they left the fuel, for example, around 17 kwacha 15 ngwe, and now it's at 30. That is true, and we admit that. We should also remember that when we look at history, for example, under Levi Mwanawasa, the dollar was around 5 kwacha, but under PF the dollar was around 15 kwacha. If we want to compare the past, under Kaunda, there was a time the dollar was 2 kwacha to $1 under Kaunda. If we look at many policies over the past 30 to 50 years, they have led us to where we are, including lack of economic stamina to produce, lack of empowerment of young people to have entrepreneurial skills, which we are now doing under CDF, so that we can boost the economy to bring it back and stabilize the dollar and kwacha exchange rates. It's quite emotional to discuss prices, and it should not be taken as though it is rude to remind people of where we are coming from. But there is a historical context to this. Production of mines in Zambia at mines was going down. The mines were not producing as well. Some mines were even leaving. With the coming in of our government, there has been a restoration of hope, new capital injection in our country, so that the general production, the GDP of our nation goes up and increases. So we don't want to say it has only increased by 10%. No. The truth is there is an admittance that there is a higher cost of living in certain aspects and certain aspects. That has been admitted at all levels of governance and government. But we are working on it. And that is part of fixing. Part of fixing is you have remodeling 1, remodeling 2, remodeling 3, you tweak here, you tweak there. Not because you are doing guesswork, but you understand that it takes 1 or 2 rainy seasons to have a stable maize supply in a country. It takes 1 or 2 or 3 years to have a stable cash flow in terms of GDP. So we are going to experience lower price. Mr. Elvis admitted that yesterday he bought meal at 200, which is lower than where it was 2 weeks ago, and it is going to go significantly lower.
And is he talking about 20 kg? He had specified not 25 but 20 kg.
Well, Chumweka, any reduction in price at the moment is also a gain and a benefit. And we are going to see significant reductions or stabilization in certain cases. And I don't want to go too deep into economic issues. I would rather people who are specifically in that area come and address that. But I can assure you there is going to be significant inflow of foreign direct investment, local investment, and many incentives given to young people. And may I marry this with Mr. Chisha, before I come to Mr. Ntele. Mr. Chisha said he would rather pay school fees for 300 a year rather than buy midday meal. That is because Mr. Chisha can afford school fees. There are people who did not even have an option, who were staying home. And we should not poke a gift of a horse in the nose because it suits others and not us. As others are benefiting, we are next. So those who have benefited from free education, maybe Mr. Chisha may or may not have a child or may be able to afford his child to go to a private institution. It will trickle down to all of us. Some have already benefited. Others are coming. They are next in line. There are some kids who did not go on bursaries of CDF this year, but they are going in 2024 because they are next in line. There is more money. And even with the new CDF Bill Amendment Act, more people will access money quicker, easier, without any...
maybe Mr. Chisha's point is, yes, the government may have, quote-unquote, subsidized when you talk about the education sector through the free education policy, but it feels like it's almost redundant because then now, and when this argument usually comes up that you have the free education policy, but you have children going to school hungry. They were not able to afford the bag of midday meal, but they're able to go to school.
Let me answer that in the context of what is going on. When children, in the past, in these schools, there were no desks. There were no desks. Schools were built in some cases, but no infrastructure. In some cases, schools were built and abandoned. In some cases, where schools were not abandoned, there were no teachers. And yes, there was a point about by Mr. Ntele about the ratio, student-to-teacher ratio. This recruitment of 30,000 has already impacted on the student and teacher ratio, and it is going to increase. Just now, there's about to be a 4,500 recruitment right now as we are speaking. In addition, that is all to increase and improve student-to-teacher ratio. Not only that, because of CDF, local people in Kanchibia, in Matero constituency, in Kabata constituency, in Shangombo, they are manufacturing their own desks. And now we have teachers, we have desks. That is only one sector, education sector. And we are going to see an improvement in all sectors. On the issue of expensive motor vehicles, I believe this is a cabinet issue. I cannot comment on it. I believe Secretary to the Cabinet, they are handling this matter between them and the President, and I'm not privy to the ins and outs. There are certain declarations that were made by the President that perhaps they require certain interventions legally, changing constitutionally, which I cannot comment on because some of them are state secrets. You know, as a nation, we should also accept there are certain dialogues and conversations that belong to the state because they are part of the territorial integrity of our country. They are part of the bedroom conversations of this nation that we are not all entitled to. We cannot be discussing, for example, presidential flight plan and revealing a presidential flight plan without risking the security of the president. I, as a citizen of Zambia, cannot discuss the flight plan of the President of the United States of America without getting into trouble. So let us continue to enjoy our freedoms, but let us also be responsible in certain conversations that hinge and stand on national security and state security.
Let's get to Mr. Ntele's contribution there. We also touched on why you joined politics and him also preferring you in the motivational speaker capacity.
You know, life sometimes has no balance. Before I joined, I was criticized for not joining. When I joined, I was criticized for joining. Even now, some are happy to hear from me, others are very sad to hear from me. But there is a very wonderful saying which says, in order for evil to continue, good men must be quiet. And I think that our nation needs all of us, those in government, those appointed, those on the bench, those in the terraces. All of us must continue to contribute to this nation. And I also have my own personal vision, and maybe it may be in conflict with others who love me in one way. Even, I've had this for many years, and I know I'll have it for many more years. You have to just understand that I also care for this country much, much more than you may even appreciate. So thank you for your concern, but just pray for us as we continue to serve our country.
0211-226841 or 0978-895-895. It's a message here from Chibwana in Quito. Says, good morning, Chimweka and Mr. Nawa. Please, we love you as a leader who's upright, but don't become a bootlicker because of the hidden agenda of you justifying what the president and the ministers admitted and apologized, that we will work on them over forces of dollar, fuel, millimil, when you're just 2 days in office. We expect facts around some of these conversations before people begin to lose interest in the current government. Let's just get to another message before we get to let you respond. Francis Lubika from Nawa says, good morning, Chumeka, Mr. Nawa. Mr. Nawa is cherry picking and being economical with facts on the current dire economic situation and political space that Zambians have been flung into by the UPND. Mr. Nawa is ignoring that prior to coming to office, a huge time-bound economic changes were promised to the people, but the opposite is what we've seen. The cost of living, the shrinking political space has become so palpable. Look at he also makes reference to the IBA, and there's also a radio station that had hosted a political historian and IBA writing to them. What about the single sourcing of fertilizer supply as well as overly biased speaker, deputy speaker in parliament? So these are two here, but let's start with the first one there, where Chibwana feels that you need to refrain from being a bootlicker and just saying things to justify and please the government and the president of the day.
There's a wonderful African saying which says, do not rebuke a man in public who you can rebuke in private. Just because we are saying the wonderful things that have been done doesn't mean we are not able to share new ideas with leaders where we feel they could go a certain way. And that is part of who I am personally. I will always say the truth, whether you like it or not, whether you are my superior or not, or my junior or not. And I also want the same from you, to communicate to me when I don't do right or when I could do better. And also when I do right, communicate to me. So in this era, to be honest, bootlicking is actually out of fashion. It was maybe fashionable at another time. So Chibwana, I want you to know that we will continue to serve and we will continue to give checks and balances even within the party. There are many times.
How true is it that it's out of fashion? Because I would argue that it's only taking place differently under the UPND, same as cadarism for others, that it does exist, it's just happening in a different form.
Where there are human beings, there will always be areas of perfection and improvement. But I think we know where we are coming from, and we also know the kind of people that are in power now. They generally don't even kind of like that kind of lifestyle. They would rather have a conversation with you so that you share ideas. And that is a relationship that I personally have with the president. Many times I will share ideas with him and he will respond and he will share input. Sometimes he will do things according to how he sees them. And there are times he will come back and say, Mubita, well done, you were right. So that is the kind of leadership we have. It's not about bootlicking. I don't think we should go back to that level of leadership. In terms of Francis, being economical with truth, cost of living has gone up. This has been admitted. Single sourcing of fertilizer, we saw some cancellation of fertilizer contracts that were initially awarded, and we saw new contracts being awarded. We saw a transparency, and one of the things I love now is the transparency, the ability to see with our own eyes what is going on, whether we like it or not. The transparency has gone up. It's part of the governance to be able to share with the Zambian people information. Even where there were shortcomings, for example, in the procurement process of fertilizer in the previous season, those were communicated to the public. That was a rare feat of leadership, and that is what we are going to see more and more. In terms of the IBA letter, I have not seen it. You need to pardon me, so I'm unable to comment. Sometimes by being economical with the truth, it's because we expect people to say what we want, and that may not happen, or it may happen in another way. Like I said earlier, we will share ideas, we will correct where we are wrong, and we will admit where we are wrong, but we'll say things as they are. And where errors have been corrected or admitted, I think that is sufficient.
Well, the letter was just something from the Independent Broadcasting Association that did write to the radio station that recently hosted former University of Zambia lecturer Dr. Shua, and radio station was written to over that, the authority saying that Dr. Shua's assertions on governance and public appointments had the potential to cause disunity in the country and needed adequate probing or guidance from the moderator. But this bigger question here, I think, around this is the alleged shrinking democratic space. We know that even for the opposition leaders, they wrote to President Hakainde Hichilema calling for an indaba, and one of the concerns away from the cost of living is the shrinking democratic space. People, just this week, on Wednesday, there was a group of citizens who planned on having a protest, and interestingly enough, some of these individuals, some of them actually protested last time when they went to the bush, which clearly was in good favor of the Upnd, and others were seen them as freedom fighters. Today, members of the UPND spoke with the Deputy Secretary General a few days ago, alleging that those are politically aligned people. Even the Chief Government spokesperson himself accused them of being politically aligned to the opposition. They were denied the go-ahead with that protest. That was on Wednesday. Socialist Party was supposed to have a rally on the Copper Belt in Kitwe. They were denied the ability to do so. Here in Osaka, the Patriotic Front, Michinga Grounds, they were denied. So these are just some examples of people who have not been allowed to go ahead with their rights to associate with people and speak with the people, and brings up the conversation of a shrinking democratic space. These are things that you, when you're in a position, were calling for and advocating for, wanted. Today, it seems like those in opposition don't have that as they would like.
So in terms of the context of that letter, where they're saying the moderator should have guided the conversation better, the government has a right. Even this conversation I'm having with you right now, it's being monitored by government. It has a right to know what people are talking about. If I say something right now on this platform with you, Chimweka, myself as Mubita Nawa, I could be in trouble tomorrow. That is the right of the government. That is the right of the government. If I say something, for example, to cause anarchy or unrest or to provoke people to act a certain way, there are laws in Zambia that the UPND government found. Some of these laws were enacted by the same colleagues who are complaining. I was thinking last night that what if Bill 10 was to be introduced today in Parliament? Would our colleagues endorse Bill 10 today in its format as it was introduced or attempted to be introduced that time? I promise you they would not vote for Bill 10. So,
but in similar vein, as you continue, in similar vein, the argument is that it's not fairly applied, because you talk about saying something that could incite. Earlier in the show, you accused the PF of using tribal lines and all of this in how they were distributing fertilizer and so on. That can easily be considered as such, as you inciting people to rise up against a certain group of people and have certain emotions and feelings towards them. So but probably that the argument is that probably situations like that, seeing that you are in favor of the government and the ruling party of the day, it should not be enacted towards people like you.
Let us no. Even towards people like me, we will also get in trouble if we did that. Trust me on that. That is the kind of leader we have. Even me, if I did exactly what some of our colleagues have done, I will be in trouble. I'll give you an example.
Towards the government of the day.
Absolutely.
But not towards anybody in the opposition.
Even towards anybody in the opposition, I'll be in trouble. If I stand up today and I advocate for violence, or even I can't even mention certain words because even mentioning them is in itself perhaps promoting them, I assure you, Chimweka, I will be in trouble. So I'll give you an example of a colleague who went to University of Zambia over some elections that did not occur at University of Zambia or were rescheduled. And this colleague advocated at the University of Zambia grounds for students to do certain things. You know the sensitivity of the University of Zambia, historically, strategically, and geographically. And that colleague ended up in troubled waters because of what they did. That has been there. By the way, the Public Order Act, which is the number one guiding law when it comes to assembly and so on and so forth. The Public Order Act has been in our institutions for years and years. Even our colleagues had a chance to change the Public Order Act. They did not. They did not reform that law. And it is a law, Chimweka. And until Parliament changes certain laws, they will continue to affect us. And let me remind you, there was a funeral in Kitwe of a colleague who died in a road accident in Ndola. The president, myself, and another gentleman were supposed to fly to Kitwe that day. We went and arrived at the airport. Our flight was cancelled. I cannot tell you, that was one of the most painful moments in my life, to see the president attend a funeral of the friend, and we quickly organized through special duties for a teleconference with our friends in Kitwe for the president to be able to mourn and join our friends. When other presidents came to Zambia to mourn Dr. Kaunda, our president followed that funeral through his home. I was there with him. So we shouldn't come back today and complain about laws that we put in ourselves. What we should do is work together with our government.
But the argument is that it's abuse of the Public Order Act, because when you talk about the Public Order Act, there's also the discretion of the law enforcers, because there's so many aspects of the Public Order Act that people do not exactly put in place, and it's really at the discretion and leniency of the law enforcers. They decide which one they're going to act on, and that's where the argument usually comes in, that there's certain things that, especially seeing that the Public Order Act has been argued as a colonial law, should really be reconsidered in how it's also enacted.
Our friends were in power for 10 years. They did not touch the Public Order Act. Instead, they even wanted to bring Bill 10, which personally I would like Bill 10 maybe to be reconsidered so that we can see whether our friends' intentions were genuine. I don't think Bill 10 was a good bill, even to this day. I don't think it should ever have been tabled. But if our friends were genuine, maybe we should bring it back. And I think this is a matter of National Assembly, the Speaker of the House, through Parliament, to bring amendment bills and constitutional amendment bills that can help our nation to grow. Until that happens, those who never change the laws must not complain. I believe that even when you look at, for example, bail now, people are barely sleeping in jail these days. You find one of the complaints, even amongst some UPND members, is that people who have insulted the president are coming out of jail within 2 hours, within 1 hour. That is part of governance. I stayed Chimweka at Tikawata cell for 14 days. I stayed there for 14 solid days over a false accusation that I had insulted the head of state at that time, which I did not, and I never did, and I've never done. But I've forgiven him, and I've forgiven their people, because they didn't know what they were doing. So does President Haga in your mind, and obviously the state security that falls under him through his appointing authority, really care about some of these things? Because you talk about people spending days in police cells when bond requirements are able to be met. The same thing is happening now, Mr. Nawa, unless you're not aware of that we've had leaders who spent nights and days in the police cells when, according to them and their lawyers, bond requirements have been met. Probably the only person who bond requirements were met and somehow that didn't happen in the recent past, if we talk about public figures, is the former First Lady. Within hours, somehow, it's definitely that bond was granted. And what time was she released? 21 hours.
That was in the evening, exactly. But we've seen this happen. Munia Sulu, who's an amazing member of parliament, this happened to him recently. We've seen this happen, Mr. Sean Tembo, this happened to him recently. Dr. Fred Member, this happened to him recently. It's been happening, unless you're not aware of that.
I am fully aware. I'm also fully aware that there are some leaders who are insulting the president by using the word Bali, because there is a technical, legal escape through that. And I pray that our leaders can respect the office of the president. There is an African saying that says, young man, do not insult old people, because one day you will be old. And for me, as a father, I don't see credibility in a man or a woman who constantly insults the president's office or the office of the president, and he himself or herself wants to aspire as a president. It lends less credibility to your name and the seriousness to your intentions. And I hope we can bring maturity and political dialogue in terms of respecting the president's office.
But what's your comment on people still spending days, as you did, as you mentioned now, as you did, that your fellow colleagues in the political space are experiencing what you used to experience before?
There are cases. In my case, for example, their argument was that Director of Public Prosecution papers got lost or didn't sign, and my lawyers got word from DPP at that time that DPP had written to the government at that time that my case was not prosecutable. The DPP has to authorize a case before it goes to court. The DPP had refused, and we have credible evidence towards that. The DPP had advised the state at that time that this case is not prosecutable, but for political reasons, perhaps other people chose otherwise. So there are technical aspects, and there are cases, Chimweka, when the security of the state, even bond and bail, do you know that it can be denied? A judge can say, no, I will not grant you bail. Maybe you're at flight risk, maybe you are at a bigger risk. There are cases I don't understand where men spend 3 days in jail or 1 day in jail. On their way out, again, they are doing the same thing. Let me not comment on police work or Ministry of Justice work. I will leave that to them. But as a young brother to some of these people, I can just say, you will be one day presidents. Would you like us to insult you, or our grandchildren to insult you the way you insult us?
But you see, it's happened tomorrow. Just recently, the National Secretary as well, because we can keep adding people to this list. Just recently, the National Secretary from the Socialist Party was detained for what was charged as trespassing, and he had to move from police station. I know in your situation, you also had to go to the northern province, from understanding, in Wapula.
Yes.
You had to go all the way there, and similar situations have been happening. People have been ferried from one place to the other. When we talk about their detention and still spending days there, as an older brother to someone like him, for example, what advice would you give to him where he's had to experience something like this?
There are laws in the police case initiation process where it says the area of offense is where you are charged at. And the police have a right to keep you in a place for those reasons I mentioned earlier. For example, you are at flight, at risk, or maybe if they let you go in Osaka, you may not show up in Luapula. The police have a right to keep you. These are laws. The police department under Ministry of Home Affairs is governed by laws of this nation. And perhaps our opposition leaders should work with this government, which is willing to establish and structure better governance laws that can, for example, Public Order Act and so on and so forth, that can improve the legacy of our nation. Until that happens, we have to interpret the laws of this country based on the laws that we have. And I know they've complained about a few cases, and I've already said that it is the discretion of the police department to even keep some people. Even me, when I was detained for 14 days, there are some things I don't understand, and there are some things now when I look back I understand, because now I understand power and authority slightly more than I did then. So even for them, I think they should also appreciate God that they are spending lesser time in jail than we did, that their cases are being heard in a proper professional manner.
So it's now a case of sin, but this one is less sin. This one is less compared to this one.
It's not about that. It is about the fixing that our head of state is doing towards governance, human rights. But I believe on a personal level that our colleagues are abusing their rights. I don't know how some of the words they are using towards others. I don't understand. But the people of Zambia are smarter than that. They can read through people, and I think the future will tell.
Let's take the last two calls before we contribute, and we just keep this with strictly a minute for each call. Good morning.
Morning.
You're free to let the people talk. Who are we speaking with?
I was speaking to Kingsford.
Please come again with the name. Okay, seems to have a bad line there. Let's try the other call. Okay, we lost it there. 0211-226841 or 0978-895-895. I'd like for us to also conclude with a story that came out recently from Mukushi, where you were alleged of causing what is the full title? Occasional bodily harm, if I'm not mistaken. We'll conclude with that. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're free to let the people talk. Who are we speaking with?
We are speaking to HM from Kabi.
HM, please go ahead. In a minute, please.
Yes, Mr. Mubita, good morning.
Good morning, HM.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Mubita, you are speaking very well. But when some people come here to say that UPnd have increased the fuel, I think yesterday, you see the case when they came into office, they found the fuel at 5 kwacha. If the PFO took from 5 kwacha to 17 kwacha, if you count, there is an increment of 18 kwacha. The UPnd have done the same. They started even the dollar when PF came into office. They found the dollar at 5 kwacha. It went up to 23 when they were reading power. So what we are supposed to do now, if we have a government which is willing to work with the people to reform, instead of complaining, because all the messages this has been done was done by the previous government. Now, how we Zambia we can come to unite? Let us unite to say, no, we have to courage as a shared will, let us do this. So for the minimum reduction, I think in business, ZMS has also, it's a company or it's an entity which has the right to sell this product that the price where they see that they profit. So we also advocating that me as what, I think that is not the way to go.
Thank you so much, HM. Let's take the last call. Good morning.
Good morning, Chimaka. How are you?
Very well. How are you doing?
Good. My name is Jonathan Tembo, calling in from Solwezi.
Please go ahead in a minute, Jonathan.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Nawa. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Tembo.
Okay. In the first place, I just wanted to agree with Mr. Nawa on the many aspects he's brought concerning the scores that the New Dawn administration has made. My problem is with the president's handlers and probably himself in terms of advising the president for him to move in to State House. He's stayed at Community House for 2.5 years. The Constitution provides that the President's office and the President's residence be designated at State House, taxpayers paid for. The problem that I have with this administration is that very problem, the continued tax payment of resources to Community House. What is it that is problematic about the President having to move to State House? What is it that you would like to tell the citizens? The main reason why he's not moved out. There are many issues that arise from the expenses that go with not staying at State House. I think this matter has to be addressed.
Okay.
This matter has to be explained to the people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for that. Obviously, previous scholar HM, just looking at the interventions from government, for example, the ZNS, which even though many people have questioned the capacity, how that's going to be sustainable. Even economists, I was hearing from Mr. Yusuf Dodia just earlier this week, who also raised concern that this is not going to be sustainable, but he was just touching on that as well. But let's just couple it with Jonathan's contribution, because you have mentioned here that you're still in direct contact with President Hakainde Hichilema. I'm guessing at this point you still meet him at Community House, as opposed to what has been happening in the past, where the President, you'd find him at State House, either at the office or his home at the back. Has he explained to you further why this has been the case? We heard previously, I think, Anthony Well at some point tried to explain that it's State House is, the quasi house is in a dilapidated state. What has been his actual position on this matter?
I believe that this matter has been addressed both in Parliament, at presidential spokesman level, and I think maybe now is a good time to get an update, and we can do a press query through the honorable spokesperson, government spokesperson, to update the nation, because that is part of the job of our colleagues, to update the nation in terms of this matter. So what I would like to do, Jonathan, is I would like to request, I'll call the honorable minister today and say this was one of the issues that was, and with our good colleagues at Ministry of Information, so that perhaps they can update the nation. I, in my capacity at the moment, am unable to give an official position. All I can say is, you say that the president used to be found at State House, used to be found staying there. I think just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, there was a cabinet meeting at State House that ended around 22 hours, 23 hours at State House. So within the cultural transformation of doing things, we mustn't only look at the effectiveness of someone being at a certain location. I know there are reasons. Maybe Ministry of Works and Supply can update us on the renovations that were underway at that time. I'm personally not privy to that. I will lodge in a press query. But I would like us as a nation to accept that there have been changes in the management of things, as well as in the activities and occurrences within State House compared to the past. And I think the Honorable Minister will do well to update us, and I'll share with you, Chimweka, and the audience when that query is answered. In terms of Mukushi, you asked me about Mukushi. I think for HM, I'll leave it at that. I appreciate by HM. In terms of Mukushi, by the way, the charge I got in Mukushi was not assault, not at all. My charge sheet read that we stayed a statement, a false statement to a police officer. That was the only charge.
Yeah, but it says giving false information to a public officer and assault occasion actually bodily harm. So unless it's saying the other one was just falsehood.
We were charged jointly for that issue. I'm talking about my Mubita Nawa charge, which I have, the charge sheet which I got, was that I issued a false statement to an officer. And that false statement meant that, and might I also say that Mukushi was a family matter. It was a dispute amongst family members. It was not a legal matter. It was not a criminal matter. And sometimes, Chumeka, even people can charge you with assault. And that doesn't mean you assaulted someone. You have to answer to the police and explain where you were at that time, what happened. So the Mukushi matter was resolved a long time ago. All charges were dropped, and the family reconciled and made peace based on what happened in Mukushi. It was a strictly family matter, not a legal matter at all. No one went to jail, nobody went to prison, but there were charges, and those charges no longer exist.
So that matter has been settled?
Absolutely.
Mr. Nawa, thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of today's Friday's edition of Let the People Talk.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Our guest this morning has been the UPND Presidential Assistant for Special Duties, Mr. Mubita Nawa, just discussing various issues of national interest. And we hope that the various concerns that have also been raised here will be given to the President as you continue interacting with him and letting him know some of the challenges that people are facing out there. Thank you, the listener, for tuning in, for watching us via our Facebook page as well. We appreciate your listenership and engaging with us on this platform. Look out for Tuesday's edition of Let the People Talk, and stay tuned to Phoenix FM. My name is Jumai Bacheleshe. Have a great day.
This has been Let the People Talk. Let the People Talk.